Good morning, Chicago. Good morning, Illinois. Good morning, teachers, administrators, staff members, and all you wonderful people on the front lines, teaching our children and doing the best you can every single day. My name is Deborah Lynch, and Dr. Rasha El-Haj and I will be your moderators today for our webinar entitled E-Learning Tips for Teachers. And today we're going to be talking about preparing for online reading assessment with one of our great colleagues, Dr. Cherise Wolf. Just a reminder that this webinar is part of the weekly series of free webinars offered by Chicago State, along with free CPDUs for attending. Before we start, I'd like to go over some housekeeping. First, it is recommended that you view the webinar in full mode and have all other tabs or web pages closed for better viewing quality. We will also be showing a couple of short video clips today. So if there's any problems with the video on your end, they will be included in the material you get after the webinar, so you will be able to view them later. If you do encounter any other technical problems, please try to troubleshoot your device or internet connection independently. The majority of times, the technical troubles you might encounter can be solved at your end if you go to the audio tab and do an audio check or a video check. We have no way of attending to those issues on our end, especially with such a large group. I'd like to draw your attention to an important feature. If you look to your right on the control panel, you will see the questions tab. Please type in your questions in the space provided. We will be reviewing those questions and sharing them with Dr. Wolf at the end of her presentation. Please make sure your questions are sent to everyone and not private so that we can see them and share them. This session will be recorded and shared. You will receive an email from us later today with the recording of the video, with Dr. Wolf's PowerPoints, and our certificate of completion for your ISB recertification. And finally, at the end of the webinar, we ask you to complete our exit survey, sharing your evaluation of the webinar and any suggestions you might have for future subjects you might like to see us address. But before we get started, we'd also like to get an idea of who's with us today. So I'm going to launch a poll and ask you to indicate who you are. Are you an elementary, pre-K teacher, a middle or high school teacher, a special ed teacher, an administrator, or some other school level role, specialist, reading coach, etc.? We'll give everybody a couple of seconds to fill in that poll, and we'll see who's here. Okay, with about 75% of our participants in here, let's close the poll and see what we have. All right, we're going to hit share and take a look. So as you can see, we've got 34% pre-K elementary teachers with us today, 15% of high school teachers, 28% of you are special ed teachers, 2% are administrators, and a full 22% are other. Okay, thank you for that. All right, one more question, and then we're going to go ahead and get into our presentation. So the next question asks you to give us a little bit of an idea of how prepared you feel to assess reading skills in an online environment. So please indicate to us, if you would, whether you strongly agree that you're prepared, agree, you feel kind of neutral about it, or whether you disagree or strongly disagree. How prepared do you feel about assessing reading skills in an online environment? Another couple seconds here. And we're at about 75% voting. So I'm going to close the poll, share the results, and let's see what we've got here. Okay, so about 18% of the participants today feel prepared to assess reading skills. So almost half, kind of neutral. Yeah, this is a whole new world, right? And then we've got 38% disagree or strongly disagree about feeling prepared. Well then, you have come to the right place. We are going to get this webinar going. So without further ado, let me introduce our presenter today. Dr. Cherise Wolf is an educator with 25 plus years experience in classrooms from grades 1 through graduate school. She's a licensed reading specialist, elementary education teacher focusing on social science and general science, and holds an LBS 1. She earned her doctorate in curriculum and instruction from Loyola University, Chicago. She also became licensed in general school administration. She's presented her work throughout the United States, Canada, and Europe, and her publications focus on dialogical teaching, the PISA tests, the International Student Assessment Test, and the effect public press has on perceptions of schooling and literacy teacher development. She's published, she teaches literacy and advanced literacy courses and initial licensure methods in elementary education department at Chicago State. So without further ado, I'll turn over the floor to Dr. Cherise Wolf. Dr. Wolf, please take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I thank you for the introduction, Dr. Lynch. And as I was preparing for this morning, I was thinking, well, what do our teachers need in terms of literacy development and literacy preparation for their online classes? And as your poll indicates, reading assessment is a topic that is incredibly important right now. And so I thought, well, let's look at that topic. I have a question for the audience, and perhaps they can write their responses in the chat box. But the question is, what really matters right now? What are your top 5 things that your students need to know during this time? And just to give due credit, I borrowed that question from Carol Lee Tomlinson, who just did a webinar on a similar topic. How do we prepare teachers for the online learning environment? And that question was foremost in her presentation. What really matters? Let's think about that. So just take a few minutes to think through that. Then the second thought question that I have: how do you currently use technology to support and assess the pillars of literacy skill development? This presentation will focus on literacy and reading development. And throughout the presentation, I will introduce you to a few websites that are useful for literacy skill development, as well as Dr. Lynch had pointed out, a couple of videos that we will also view moving forward. But I'm also interested to know from you what you currently do. How do you currently use technology? What does technology look like in your classroom? Technology gives us quick access to a large volume of information that was unimaginable not long ago. And that's what we need to think about. We need to think about how can we use this technology in the best manner. It's imperative that we educate learners to be informed users of technology so that they know how to evaluate information and use online resources. So the presentation itself is broken down into or divided into subsections. I will be looking at word knowledge and vocabulary, fluency, comprehension, and writing. How can we formatively assess and evaluate student development in an online environment or virtual environment in those 4 areas? What tools are available to us as classroom teachers or as administrators? And I also wanted to be sure to offer you tools and resources that were not cost prohibitive, that began as free trials or were nominal in cost. And that was very important to preparing for this morning, because I know teachers can often be overwhelmed with the cost that they have to incur. So these resources, hopefully you will find helpful in that regard. So on this slide, virtual word walls and dictionary. Looking across and thinking across the content areas from pre-K through 12th grade, we introduce complex text to our students. And they have to learn academic vocabulary, and ideally that academic vocabulary then becomes their academic language. How do we do that in an online environment? So I have 2 videos there that I will not have an opportunity to show you today, but they will be on the PowerPoints later. But the first video introduces virtual word walls as an evolving tool within your classroom that you can build cumulatively across topic, chapters, text, accessible in a variety of electronic domains. The video itself from YouTube provides a tutorial on how to create a virtual word wall across the content areas. It introduces teaching vocabulary in social studies and in history specifically. But the concept can be used interchangeably in all areas. And students are provided with a great degree of autonomy in choosing and adding the words that are important to them. One idea that came across repeatedly in preparation for today's webinar is student choice. And as we know, assessment should be and must be useful and beneficial to the students. Feedback should be rather automatic or quick. And so working on in an online environment and having students post words and definition that are essential to their understandings, and then the teachers and administrators and others on the other end can provide automatic or quick feedback for them. So in the video, it shows that students can categorize their knowledge of vocabulary. You can categorize it according to topic, categorize it according to word structures, categorize it in many different ways. Also allows for student self-assessment. In self-assessment, building that metacognitive level of knowledge by color coding the words on the word wall. The second video that will be available to you is on the creation of a digital dictionary. And with the Dictional Dictionary, it's adaptable for students to add words through Google Slides. Also accessible on most devices. And it's a tutorial video that will help you to guide you through the process of developing an interactive table of content, hyperlinked to a variety of resources, and really engaging the students in a dictionary in a way that print dictionaries or dictionaries that are not as engaging might do. The students can add multiple vocabulary words. And there's a great deal, again, of choice and definitional building for the students. So I'm going to take you to a website that I also have found that could be very useful in vocabulary development. This website is designed or developed with English as second language learner students in mind, but I'm sure it would be beneficial to many and all students. So I'm going to close out of my PowerPoint. I'm going to take you to eslkids.com. And as you can see with ESL, this is a free resource, and it offers flashcards, worksheets, games and songs, in-class activities, links, and other materials. Now the flashcards, you click on that, it gives you a variety of different topics that are of high interest to students. You can see on the right side of your screen the topics, actions and alphabet, animals, and so forth. And then in the center of the screen, it gives you directions and instructions on how to integrate the use of flashcards within your classes and within your course development. For worksheets, it gives the teacher a great degree of autonomy in terms of how selecting the theme and randomizing the list of words. Gives you an idea or enables you to select the words that you might want to use and so forth. So I found that to be very useful, and I thought I would share that with you. And then looking at the games, you've got classroom games, and there are 4 pages of games such as alphabet shout out, writing relay, erase relay, sculptures, and soup. And looking on to the next page, charades, clusters. So games that students can play that they would find engaging and entertaining, but also helping them to build that complex vocabulary that is needed. So I'm going to now return back to my PowerPoint slide show. And so that's, no, I want to do that. All right. So the next area that I want to discuss is fluency and helping students to develop their fluency more with audio. As I teach at the university, fluency has 5 areas within its domain. We look at the rate of reading, We look at the use of cueing systems, syntactic, semantic, graphophonic. We look at punctuation and phrasing or prosody. We look at intonation and voicing. And so fluency is quite complex. So I want to cue, we're going to see a video in just a minute, but I want to introduce you to the Fluency Tutor for Google. It provides students with confidence building practice when reading aloud. Students practice and record reading assignments at their own pace and away from the classroom. And teachers can provide feedback and track reading progress over time. The students can choose content from the web or a Google Doc to practice reading. You have two resources that are going to be on your PowerPoint. The first of which is a video that we're going to watch now. The second is a ilovefreesoftware.com, and it goes into greater detail about Fluency Tutor for Google and really helps you to set it up for yourself. And so I thought it was useful for you. So I'm going to ask Dr. Lynch to start the YouTube video.
Any students' reading development is by listening, sharing, and giving direct feedback. And that's even more crucial for students who are struggling with their reading because of learning difficulties such as dyslexia, or those who are English language learners. However, listening to your students reading aloud individually takes time, and that's something that busy teachers don't always have a lot of. There are also all kinds of distractions in the classroom. And for young people with literacy challenges, it can be a noisy, stressful place to read aloud in front of others. Fluency Tutor takes the pressure out of assessing reading progress for you and your students. It's a big time saver for teachers, and it makes reading a whole lot more fun and rewarding for all your students, including those who need extra support. Fluency Tutor is easy to use for teachers and students alike.
Well, thank you for that, Dr. Lynch. As you can see, the Fluency Tutor for Google is a very useful tool, enabling teachers not only to gauge the students' fluency as they're reading, but also to use it as assessment and doing running records as well, and identifying patterns of reading miscues to determine where students can best benefit from instruction. The next technology that I would like to introduce to you or discuss with you is text-to-speech technology, where students hear the passage read aloud along with help from on-screen highlighting. And so we might think, as reading teachers, reading specialists might think, well, shouldn't the students be reading? It's reading. And my answer to that would be text-to-speech technology provides that modeling that students need in fluency, provides the model that students need in pronunciation, enunciation, and so forth. Not only do students who have decoding problems, they can benefit, but so can English language learners, as it says. The video that I've got included on this particular slide, it's a 4-minute video, and the learner has a preference that provides preferences to the students to drive their motivation and engagement, boosting their confidence. Students can listen to the text as they read, and it's useful for kids who have trouble. Okay. Something's
Shall I
happening.
hit play?
No, not yet. Not yet. So in this video, you'll see students actually engaged in the classroom in a text-to-speech environment, and where and how it increases independence and reduces frustration within the reader. It's also useful for writing development, because once the student writes something, they can then hear their writing, which is something that most writers aren't able to do. And I think that's very beneficial as well. So I'll ask Dr. Lynch now to cue the video. Thank you, Dr. Lynch, for showing that video. So as we can see, the text-to-speech technology is just absolutely wonderful for our students, and how they were engaged in their classroom and motivated, and our students who are struggling to read have that confidence that they need to succeed. So additional audio tools that are available to us: Microsoft Immersive Reader. And you have a video that will be in your PowerPoint, and it's a 3-minute video. And it creates a reading experience that adds accessibility and comprehension for learners of all ages and abilities. It models syllabication, highlights the use of nouns and verbs within the text, and the teacher can choose what the focus of instruction should be or reinforced. It also provides line-by-line focus for students. Our students who have tracking issues, problems tracking across text, this tool provides our students with a way to isolate lines of text. So they're just focusing on reading at a single line of text, as opposed to being overwhelmed by a larger chunk of information, which I think is very useful for many students, particularly the developmental readers. The teacher can choose what it is the student should read. You can download or bookmark the text to your device, and then apply the Microsoft Immersive Reader to that particular text, and then engage your students with the reading of that text and the support of that text, whether it be through the decoding skills of syllabication, whether it be through the tracking that many of our students have trouble with, whether it be learning parts of speech and authors' direct explicit use of parts of speech. And so I think that's a very useful tool. So now we're going to leave this section of the presentation. We're going to go on to comprehension. And with comprehension, as we know, it is the skill that we are all striving for with our readers. We start with word knowledge, build fluency, and that fluency and word knowledge and definitional knowledge builds comprehension. And so the presentation has taken you across and through the process of reading, but taken you through it in a way through technology and digital platforms and digital tools that you might use in your classroom or beyond your classroom. So as I said earlier in the webinar, we must provide our students with choice as much as possible. What do they want to know? What are they interested in knowing? What are they motivated to read? And with that answer, then finding the most appropriate and best tool or best reading materials for them. So the essential digital skills that students need to build that comprehension. They have to learn how to search for and evaluate information. As was started this morning, or stated very early in the webinar, we have so much information available to our students. And as we all know, not all the information is useful to them. How do we prepare them to figure out what is the most important? activelylearn.com is a website that helps to do that, and we're going to look at that website. Just give me a minute. So it says meeting the challenge of remote learning, and there's a free educator account And as I scroll the page, text and videos for English language arts, science, and social studies with scaffolds and higher order questions. And there's a catalog that you can peruse, news articles, English language arts, social studies, science. And as I click on the English language arts, it's loading the page. Then it takes me to curriculum units, genres, themes, news and articles, the school library. And it gives me a variety of high interest articles. And it also tells me the Lexile level as well as the grade level that this particular article would be appropriate for. And I can integrate that into my curriculum. So I thought that was a really good use and a way to answer questions that students might have. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint now. And as the PowerPoint says, it's an interactive reading platform where you can support and motivate and engage in deeper levels of learning. And you can customize the text to meet the student needs. The students can highlight the text, and you can track the progress of the students as they're reading. And as you track the progress, you can use it as a pre-assessment. Questions can be asked at different locations throughout the reading to support different comprehension levels. The next essential digital skill that our students must have is locating answers to questions. And to accomplish that, Padlet.com is a useful resource. So I'll take you there next. And Padlet.com, collaborate better, be more productive. Make beautiful boards, documents, and web pages that are easy to read and fun to contribute. And it's, again, a free resource for teachers. And as you see, you can choose a pre-made template or go bold with a blank slate. Invite students to collaborate, to add their own content, to make comments in real time, to post their work and to share their work. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. Padlet.com can be used to introduce a new story, ask essential questions, share about a story, and essentially serve as an interactive whiteboard for communication between you and your students. And the last resource that's on this page is communicating digitally. And with that, the YouTube video demonstrates how technology in the reading or literacy classroom enables students to move toward their learning goals. The technology integrated classroom curriculum is essential for student development. I'm going to move on to the next slide. Now we're going to move on to something that's really, really cool. It's augmented reality. And with augmented reality, there's two resources there, cospaces.edu and Wonderscope. And in cospaces.edu, which is a video that we'll watch in a minute, students create stories as an interactive exploration. It's a tutorial video that demonstrates how students choose or work with existing story elements. They can set character animation, record character voice, and create scenes. In Wonderscope, which is the second link I have there for you, ask the questions, what if stories could come to life? What if students could play a role in the story that they're reading about? What if reading became exploring and really making reading an engaging activity? So I'm going to ask Dr. Lynch to cue the augmented reality video co-spaces. So that was actually Wonderscope. Co-spaces is equally cool, and I encourage you to view that video as well. But as you could see, the motivation and delight with the students as they were engaging in augmented reality in the classroom and also at home. Very, very cool. We're really moving reading and literacy into into a new age with these tools. So another tool that's available to us and that works with augmented reality is Google Expeditions. And with Google Expeditions, it's a mix between augmented reality and virtual reality. And it guides the students through 360-degree scenes and 3D objects. In the video that I've got there that you'll have on your PowerPoint, it demonstrates students using the excitement and engagement about dinosaurs, a topic that they have enjoyed reading about for a very long time, forever, but really making it more interactive in 3D. So I'm sure you'll enjoy watching that video as well. Now we'll move on to writing. Writing is an interesting topic to address in terms of virtual assessment, online assessment. We need to be sure that our students are reciprocating response between reading and writing and really merging the two as they should be together, using stimuli text and multiple sources. Technology can enhance student responses to reading selections. And students can cite textual evidence as they respond and continually develop their depth of content knowledge. So what is expected from the next generation of writing assessments? As we look at the six traits of writing: ideas, organization, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, and conventions. There is a resource that is out there, and it's called WriQ. And with WriQ, there's a 2-minute video that we won't have time to watch today, unfortunately. But it demonstrates how we can make writing assessments more manageable for the classroom teacher. Because I'm sure we would all agree that assessing essays and assessing student independent writing can be quite challenging. And there has never before been a universal framework for grading writing. In reading, we have frameworks in place, but in writing, not so much. Evaluating writing can often be judgmental and based on personal opinion and feeling of what's being stated. And as we know, our students have a variety of writing ability levels. And how do we judge what is the average? What does it look like? How do you make sure that every student's work is being assessed fairly and consistently? Well, this particular tool, RIQ, grades papers digitally in Google Docs. It assesses the quality of writing, measuring productivity, how much students write with accuracy, how many errors do they make, what is their speed at which they write, and what is the maturity of the vocabulary that they use when they're writing. RIQ is a tool that provides that meaningful feedback for every student and provides a clear visibility of student progress over time, and also gives you the comparative data that you may not ordinarily have. So that will be also on your PowerPoint. So it's about, it is 9:18, and so I'm going to allow time for questions and hopefully some answers. And I thank you for engaging in this webinar with me, and I welcome your questions.
All right. Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Alhaj, and I will be sharing some of the questions that you had throughout this webinar with Dr. Wolf. Dr. Wolf, thank you for your presentation. We had a number of questions about students who were non-readers. I know you were a gen ed teacher, but I think we have a number of special education teachers who are concerned about their non-readers. So how would, so if you could have some ideas about how the suggestions that you had in your presentation could work for non-readers in a mixed group online, you know, those who have IEPs.
Okay, well, a couple of things in terms of the tools that are available to us, and with making text more engaging. The augmented reality tools that are out there really would be quite beneficial to non-readers, because it really makes the text come to life and students become engaged within the text, and they have the capability and capacity to write their own stories and to tell their own stories. So if they're not ready to become dependent or to take an author's ideas and take an author's information and interpret that information and make meaning out of someone else's ideas, and that's what we ask students to do when we're asking them to read. If through augmented reality, we can have our students tell their own stories. They become the storyteller. They become the author. They become the producer. So it's not. I compare it in my mind as to having our students work with language experience approach, which is a strategy that I often use within my courses at the university, because it is one of the strategies that we have that really gives us great insight as to how students are prepared to work with the language skills that they already have. And so if we're minimizing the students' dependency on the author's idea and enabling them to become the author, they're engaging in story. Now, with the text-to-speech technology that's available, our non-readers are then able to understand and hear story and hear text, whether it be narrative, whether it be expository. So they're not reliant on their decoding skills, on their ability to read fluently, because it's being read to them fluently. So the focus then becomes on their conceptual understandings and their interpretation of concept, and not so much on their ability to read text, as it might be too complex for them. So those are two tools that I think are very useful for our non-readers.
Okay, thank you. There were many questions about which resources were free and which ones required a fee. Can you let us know?
Right. Yeah, I tried my very best to find resources that were free or nominal, and they have, and many of those, because as I think we would all agree that with education and technology, there are so many companies that are out there are trying to sell product, right? And teachers just don't have, and schools just don't have the budgets for all of those products. So the resources that I included in the video in the webinar are free, or have free trial periods, or have basic memberships that are free, and then you can expand those if you find that they're beneficial to you. I tried to avoid all the products that are being sold to us, and try to feature some that would be that would be more realistic for us to use. And I hope you find that to be true.
Okay, and there were a few questions about the text-to-speech. Looks like a lot of people were interested in it. So they were asking if, you know, if is it going to be available? The link is going to be available to in the PowerPoint presentation, and how do they access? Is it an app? Is it, you know, through technology? It's a website.
Right. Throughout the presentation, there were 13 links, whether it be video links through YouTube or websites to different tools. And it's my understanding that Dr. Lynch will send out an email to all of the attendees after when we're done. And within that PowerPoint, you will have the access to everything that was included in the presentation today. And there was a second part to that question. I don't know if I answered it.
It's about the text-to-speech, whether it was like an app. Is there an app that they can download? Do you know?
There is an app. Going back to the, just give me a second with that. I believe it's an app that's available. I don't have it written specifically in my notes. I'd have to go back through my PowerPoint, but it should be in there for you.
All right. Thank you so much. That concludes the question. Now I will leave it to Dr. Lynch to go for the final comments.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you so very much, Dr. Cherise Wolf. That was a rich and fruitful presentation, and we can't wait to get our hands on all of those resources. So we'd also like to thank everybody on the webinar today for your participation. We would like to remind you that the session has been recorded and will be shared with you. You will receive an email from us later today with the link to the recorded webinar, your certificate of completion for ISB, for the PowerPoint presentation with all of these wonderful resources. So you will get that from us later today at the email that you signed up with. As soon as you exit the webinar, we ask you to please complete our exit survey. It will pop up on your screen, so please take a couple of minutes to complete it. Your feedback is very important to us. And stay tuned for next week's webinar. Our follow-up email will also have a link to our College of Education website, which has access to all of our past recordings. This is webinar number 6 out of our 9-part series. Next week, we are going to have a presentation on working with parents, which you may find of interest as well. So stay tuned for next week's webinar. Those invitations go out every Monday for the Thursday morning webinar. Thank you again, everybody, for your participation and for being here with us this morning. Please stay safe and have a wonderful day. Bye now.